In week 1, we learned how active learning is considered by Chickering and Gamson as one of the 7 principles for good practice in undergraduate education. Active learning is not a spectator sport, they said. Rather, students must talk about what they are learning, relate it to past experiences, and apply it to their daily lives. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing some of the evidence that indicates students simply don't learn as much when they are sitting in class and listening. First, it's important to note that active learning takes many forms. This is a spectrum of active learning strategies arranged from simple to complex. Simple activities might take just a minute or 2 of class time, such as asking students to reflect on learning by writing a couple of sentences before they leave class. At the opposite end of the spectrum, complex active learning strategies might comprise a whole class or even a whole course, such as experiential learning or inquiry-based activities. Overall, the central argument is that active learning improves student performance, motivation, attitudes, and learning. Typically, this is due to a movement up Bloom's taxonomy. So, for example, learning moves from more foundational levels of remember or understand to learning being applied or analyzed, thus deepening the learning and retention of material. Before we look at active learning more closely, let's see what the science has to say about lecturing. Think about a lecture situation. How long do you think a student's attention span is in that environment? Any guesses? In a 1999 paper by Mikichi, it was estimated that students lose their attention after only 15 minutes of lecture. The height of attention comes at the beginning of class, such that students tend to remember 70% of the material presented in the first 10 minutes, but by the last 10 minutes of class, they recall a mere 20% of the material. This is assuming that the lecture approach remains the same throughout that time that a student is sitting in the classroom. What active learning appears to do is hit the reset button on attention. So through active learning approaches, students must recall what they have previously learned and refocus their attention on learning, leading to an overall increase in their retention of material across a lecture period. Let's have a look at some of the evidence that demonstrates this. First, active learning has been demonstrated to positively impact students' overall grade performance, as demonstrated in this study by Milo and Less. Researchers compared 2 groups of students, those in a control group, students who were enrolled in lecture-only arts and science courses, and those in a treatment group, so students who were enrolled in active learning versions of the same courses. What they found was there was a 55% pass rate on the post-test in the traditional courses. So that means 55% of all students achieved a passing grade on the post-course assessment. What do you think the pass rate was for active learning courses? Higher? Lower? It turns out that 85% of active learners achieved a passing grade on the same post-test. The average gain in the standardized test scores of the active learners was significantly higher than the traditional learners. Active learners also exhibited less variability in their gains in academic performance than traditional learners. So this means that their academic performance was more predictable and predictably high than the traditional learners. Switching disciplinary contexts, we see similar results in STEM, that is, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Freeman and colleagues conducted a meta-analysis of over 200 active learning studies in the STEM disciplines, finding that examination scores were positively influenced and active learners were less likely to fail their courses. So a similar finding to the Milo and Less study, that there was a positive improvement on performance. With all these benefits, you might be wondering why active learning isn't more common in our classrooms. The next video explores some of the common challenges to implementing active learning, as well as some of the facilitation techniques for achieving success.